This is Rock and Roll English. Real people, real English. Here's your host, Martin Johnston.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English. Episode number 278, baby. Oh yeah. In today's episode, I speak to the Hellraiser. Yes, he is back, raising hell. And we speak about holidays, and more specifically, the first holiday you have without your parents, which I actually shared with the Hellraiser. So we speak about that quite a lot. Also known as a lads holiday, lads, just boys, basically. So there are lots of stories about fish bowls, frozen chips, roller skates on sand, and much, much more. You may have heard one or two of these stories before. I'm not actually sure what stories I have told on this podcast, but even if you have heard them, I make no apologies because I love hearing the stories again. It's like watching a great film more than once, isn't it? But anyway, speaking of stories, I have some exciting news. Pay attention to this podcast on Wednesday because I am going to make a special podcast about my upcoming online course that will be called Fluency via Pronunciation and Storytelling. Okay, it will be an online course with live lessons starting in mid-September, and like the title says, it will focus on pronunciation and storytelling because I truly believe this will help you and help you achieve your goal of becoming more fluent in English. And I'm very excited about this because I have put so much work into this. In fact, let's say it's the product of my whole English teaching life, which is 12 years now that I have been teaching English, and all of the knowledge I have put into this course. But I won't mention any more about it because I will talk to you about it on Wednesday. So here is the conversation with the Hellraiser. I will talk to you all again at the end. Happy listening. Hellraiser, how are you today?
Very good, Martin. You?
Always fantastic, Hellraiser. Always fantastic. Although you have disturbed me quite a lot. We had agreed 1 o'clock. You moved the time to 12 o'clock and, you know, it's affected my lunch. I've got a set routine, eat, podcast. So will this affect my performance? I don't know.
Well, let's find out. It'd be good to see how you perform. Why don't you just have a power bar or something just before lunch?
I did have a piece of my auntie's cake that she made for me.
It's not your birthday, is it? What was the cake for?
Every day is my birthday, okay, with my aunt, okay? She loves me so much that every day is my birthday, okay?
That's good to hear. Wholesome.
And also, actually, some news for everyone. You are living in Switzerland now, Hellraiser, aren't you?
Yes, that's correct.
I thought the Swiss are famous for always being on time, so what happened?
Well, I'm just getting used to the place. Timeliness I need to work on.
Exactly. So anyway, Hellraiser, how do we usually start the show?
Reviews.
Yes, do you think we have one?
Yeah, I'm confident.
Good, because we do. And this one is from Abdulmalik1117, who has also joined the R&R family recently, and it says, the best podcast ever. I've been listening to the podcast for a couple of weeks, and I really enjoy it and love the topics that Martin chooses. I like the host's personality and how he speaks simply and informally as a real friend. Thank you, Martin. Please keep going. I love your podcast. Heart emoji ×2.
Oh, wow.
So thank you so much for that, Abdul Malik. A fantastic review. And he mentioned how he loves my personality. I was just wondering, Hellraiser, if you love my personality too.
Not really. No, I've not really ever really enjoyed it, to be honest. I think it is better when you're on the podcast, but I think that's because you're not being yourself.
Yeah, this isn't... I'm normally a complete idiot, but on the podcast, I'm less of an idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
So on to today's topic. I've already told you what we're talking about, Hellraiser, but to tell the listeners. So I recently went on holiday, a family holiday, and it got me thinking about other holidays that I went on, and I suddenly thought of the holiday that we had together, Hellraiser, in 2003 in Falaraki in Greece, which could be described as a lad's holiday, like the first time you go away on holiday with your friends, obviously boys, so lads. Obviously there were girls' holidays as well, so I thought we could talk about them, okay?
Sounds great. It's very. It's going to be very triggering. A lot of stuff happened in that holiday.
Exactly. Although I must admit, the holiday I just went on was very different. The only, I think, crazy thing that I did on the recent holiday was go to bed without setting an alarm. It's a crazy experience when you do that. You think, fucking hell, I am living. I'm going to bed, no alarm, just wake up when I want.
Well, you brought your kid with you, didn't you? So, and your wife. So I'm quite happy that it wasn't the same as the holiday we had in August of 2003.
Yeah, quite a few differences. So I thought we could talk about the steps of this holiday, okay? So like the first time basically you go away on holiday with your friends, we're calling this lads holiday because obviously, you know, we're lads, aren't we, Hellraiser?
Oh, sure.
Absolutely. So first of all, you get to the airport, really crazy. Your mum generally takes you when you're that age. I think that's what happened. I can't remember with ours.
Didn't we? I thought we got a lift with your dad.
Oh, right. Okay. Mum or dad. Yeah. And so you start off...
Didn't he want to give us some last minute advice about how to pick up women, I think, in the car on the way to the airport, which came in really handy.
Yeah, because without that advice, what would we have done, hey?
Terrible.
Yeah, I think I just remember trying to get out the car as quickly as possible before receiving advice from my dad about how to find women.
Luckily, he locked the door so we couldn't get out. No, you need to hear this, boys. You need to hear this.
Listen to an expert, okay? So it started really well, and then this thing definitely happened to us. You get to the airport and you think, right, this is it. This is the big time now. I'm going on holiday with my friends. And then you look around and there are other, in our case, boys doing the same who are much bigger, more muscly. And then you kind of think, should we just go home now?
Yep, that thought did go through a couple of times, didn't it? You go full of energy, like cock of the walk, and then you get there and realise that there's a lot more bigger, more handsome, and northern people that go on a holiday with you.
And suddenly, all the advice from my dad that we had got, just you kind of thought, well, I'm definitely never talking to a girl now because look at those. They're real boys. They're big boys. And I still have that sensation now. I still sometimes see someone and think, well, he's a real man. He's a real boy. He's got actual muscles.
He's a real boy. What, like when you go to the supermarket and see people in front of you in the queue?
It's strange you say that because I was at the supermarket the other day and there was someone that was wearing a ridiculously tight T-shirt because muscly people generally do that, don't they? They could get bigger T-shirts, but they want to show off those muscles. So he was wearing a T-shirt that probably would fit me. And I actually couldn't stop looking at his muscles and also thinking exactly that again, like, that's a real man. He's probably 10 years younger than me, but he just looks like someone that, you know, drinks beer and is a real man. He looks like someone that could fix a problem in your house.
So, someone who can drink beer, fix problems, and wear small T-shirts, that's a man in your mind, is it?
That's generally the definition. But so the next one. So when you get there, it's obviously hot. You go to somewhere hot. So the big thing is a tan, okay? Trying to get a tan. And I think it was on that exact holiday, Hellraiser, where someone referred to you as a frozen chip, I believe.
Yeah. That was good though. That was quite an inventive nickname. I think I was in the pool, and it was the owner of the hotel, Stelios, who threw a piece of ice at me and shouted and asked me why I hadn't got a tan, and then called me a frozen chip, which was good. It was really good for my confidence at that point as a young 18-year-old skinny boy.
Yeah, so just the frozen chip thing worked so well because it worked on 2 levels, didn't it? Because you were very skinny and very white, so it worked on so many levels. That was the great thing about it.
Definitely, yeah. No, it was clever. I've got to give him that. It was clever.
I, on the other hand, thought, I've got Mediterranean skin. My grandparents were Italian. I don't need suntan lotion, and I think I was quite proud of that. I thought it kind of differentiated me. That was my thing. Some people wear tight t-shirts and have muscles. I didn't need to wear suntan lotion, and then very quickly got a very red nose, and which doesn't help with my nose anyway. So quickly changed strategy on that one.
There was quite a lot of shouts out from people that were saying, "Rudolph, it's not Christmas yet. Go back to the stable," wasn't it?
Generally, mostly coming from you, I must admit. I didn't hear many other people say that except you.
Did it a lot, though. Doesn't matter where it came from, it just happened a lot.
Definitely happened.
Rudolph, get back. It's not Christmas time. You're too early.
Yeah, that did happen a lot. You're right. But I think it's also important to underline that it also came from you a lot.
Sure.
So yeah, and then obviously there's one thing, the drinking from a fish bowl as well, which is something I have on my list. So yeah, something that fish normally swim in. For some reason, on these types of holidays, are the things that everybody drinks from, which I'm not sure with COVID now, does that still happen?
Maybe that's where COVID came from.
I think you might be right. But yeah, it's pre-COVID time, so just get your straws in and get drinking, basically.
Get in there.
And something else that sometimes may happen on these holidays is, it says here, trivial arguments, like arguments with your friends, because you're there, you're spending a lot of time together, there's a lot of alcohol involved. And I think as well, Hellraiser, you suffered from this. Did you get punched in the face and a glass thrown at you? Is that correct?
Yeah. It was a mild argument. It was a disagreement. I'm not really sure what happened, but yeah, I did get punched and have a glass thrown at me. I think I called my mum, told her about it, said I wanted to come home.
Just a standard day in the life of the Hellraiser, punched and a glass. Or, normally it's one of the two, but this, you actually got both this time.
Double header, yeah. Classic, the double.
Although I'm happy to report the glass didn't connect, just the punch.
Yeah.
And I also want to say it wasn't me doing this. I wasn't punching the Hellraiser, although there were many times I did want to punch you. For example, when you constantly were calling me Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So,
yeah, fair enough.
But I refrained, so I stopped myself from doing that. But something you mentioned there, actually, about calling your mum, especially when we did this in 2003, communication was obviously very difficult. So, getting in contact with people from home, it cost about £50 a minute to call someone abroad. At that point. But I do remember our good friend Mental Marky Mark got too drunk one night, and I had my phone, and then I noticed my phone had been moved. So then when I went to find it, it was next to his bed. And then I looked at recent calls, and he had called 999. So he had called an ambulance from England.
From the British police.
Well, I'd imagine, yeah, well, that's a good point, because 999 in England is the emergency number. You can phone the fire brigade, the police, or an ambulance. So he was definitely after one of those three. I'm guessing an ambulance, but could have been a fire engine. And so he'd phoned the ambulance to pick him up to go from England to Greece. Unsurprisingly, it didn't arrive, but you cannot fault him for effort there.
He was in a bad way. And I think at that point there wasn't much, empathy between boys. Basically, if something happened to you, people would not help you and they would just laugh at you. So his only option was to call the British emergency services. I think that speaks volumes, really, doesn't it, for how much dicks we were to each other. He'd rather call the British police than us.
Absolutely, valid point. Because you're right. Mental health is a big issue these days, but back then, not taken so seriously, was it?
Didn't exist.
In fact, if anything,
I don't think it existed. I think it started in around 2006.
Well, I think the whole thing exists now because of the damage done then. That's what I think.
Exactly. That's mind blowing. That is a theory.
Absolutely. So another one I've got here is skinny dipping. So, in fact, tell the listeners, what does skinny dipping mean, Hellraiser?
Just swimming in your birthday suit with no clothes.
Fantastic. Your birthday suit. Now, again, we didn't do that. Well, I certainly didn't. I don't remember you doing that either, mainly because the advice from my dad didn't work, so we didn't find any girls to do it with. But that's generally what happens on these holidays, I've heard.
We could have gone skinny dipping, just the five of us together. That would have been as exciting as it would have got.
Yeah, it definitely would have been less fun doing it with my male friends. But yeah, one of my friends did this in Sicily actually, and then obviously what happens, you generally get moved around by the sea, and then he went back and all of his things had been stolen. Mm-hmm. And so he had to walk back to his house, which was about 5 kilometers. Luckily he did have some pants on, but he just had to walk back to his house across a very busy road because he had no money for the bus, he had no phone and no shoes, just walking. And then he actually had to ask, I'm trying to think of a fireman. I was going to say a fire officer for a minute. A fireman to use the ladder so he could get up on his own balcony.
Did the fireman let him?
Apparently, he managed to get back in. Obviously, had no form of ID to show that he lived there. But I think he explained the situation. I think the fireman probably guessed that there was a reason why he was walking around the street with no clothes on.
Was it a real fireman, or was it just a guy walking with a ladder? Is it not? You don't just see that many firemen just walking in the street, do you? It's just maybe it was a painter decorator with a hat on.
That's a good point. I would have to confirm that.
I would. It's got some holes in it, that one.
Right. Okay. So what else do I have here? While I was trying to find things on these lads' holiday, I did come across a tweet which I just thought was hilarious. So I'm just going to share this with you. So someone tweeted once, the 18-year-old boy at work has just told me he's worried about going on a lad's holiday on Friday because every time his feet touch sand, he gets an erection. And I don't know what to do with this information.
Wow, what a secret skill. That's got to come in handy sometimes, hasn't it?
Every time his feet touch the sand, he gets an erection. I don't know why specifically feet. Maybe if he just walks on his hands or something. I'm not sure if it's immediate as well.
Get some roller skates.
Yeah, that's going to be difficult, isn't it, to roller skate on sand? That's going to be a disaster. I think this will be a solid look as well. You know, swimming costume plus roller skates. But one thing, actually, which we have to mention before we go, because we are going to continue this in the family Hellraiser and talk about the X-rated stuff. But it says here the misguided tattoo. So when you get like a fake tattoo when you're on holiday, and on our lads' holiday, you got one on your stomach which said "Thug Life," if I remember. So thug, like basically a crazy person, which was inspired by the rapper Tupac. Didn't last that long, that tattoo, did it, Hellraiser?
God rest his soul. No, it was the tattoo didn't last long. No, it was written in some kind of like marker pen, wasn't it? Obviously, I went to
difficult to get rid of marker pen.
Went to a foam party and there was a lot of detergent in the air, so it disappeared quite quickly. Luckily for me and everybody else. Didn't you get your foot tattoo from a lad's holiday with Russ?
Actually, I got that on a lad's holiday that involved just me, which I'm not sure if it can be considered a lad's holiday if you go alone. But yeah, that was when I was in Asia and exploring myself. I did go to Asia with Boom Boom once, but that time was a solo trip. And I got it. It says the date in which I left, and it's written in Thai. And then I went to an internet cafe and checked the numbers, and he just wrote completely different numbers to the numbers I actually asked for. So
good on him. And doesn't it look like it says BJ? Or
that's the other one.
That's the other one. Ah, yeah.
So I've got two ridiculous tattoos. But your first one, you got in Arabic across your back, and that spelt the word dangerous in Arabic, I believe. Since
I have travelled to Arabic-speaking countries, I realise that that's not true.
It's just the idea that you went into a tattoo parlour place and said, "Can I have dangerous in Arabic written on my back?" Because I'm dangerous.
As a 15-year-old living in Chelmsford in Essex. Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to have to stop the conversation there because, unfortunately, with the Hellraiser, we did have some technical problems, as you can hear here with the recording. Are you still there, Hellraiser? Okay. I think you've got dodgy internet.
I am, yeah. Just a bit jumpy. New fibre.
Yeah, I thought in Switzerland it would be top notch. But apparently in Switzerland they don't have unbelievable internet. Well, certainly the Hellraiser doesn't. So for R&R family members, don't worry, because this conversation continues in the family area in tomorrow's podcast. If you're not in the Rock and Roll English family, remember, membership opens for 48 hours every time the podcast stops early, like today. So if you go to rockandrollenglish.com/family, you can become a member and listen to the rest of the story. So let's have a look at this week's R&R vocab, which, remember, is on the show notes. So just go to rockandrollenglish.com, podcast episodes, and the latest podcast. So I mentioned to the Hellraiser that the holiday I recently went on got me thinking about other holidays in the past. So a lovely term there, got me thinking. It made me think about. The Hellraiser described arriving at the airport as cock of the walk, which is a lovely term to basically mean to be the leader, okay, the coolest person in the world. You're on holiday with your friends, you feel like $1 million, cock of the walk, and then you see some bigger boys. I mentioned tight t-shirts show off muscles. So when you show off, it's like saying to people, look, I want to show you this, how fantastic I am. We spoke about getting a tan. Now, this word is often confused, I hear. A tan, when your skin goes bronze, let's say. When the Hellraiser spoke about being called a frozen chip, he said, I've got to give him that. So I've got to give him that. I've got to give him credit. It was a good joke. I spoke about how I didn't need sun cream, or I thought I didn't, and it differentiated me. A lovely word, more than 2 syllables that I actually understand. That means obviously it made me different. We spoke about trivial arguments, so arguments about stupid things. I said that I refrained from punching the Hellraiser, so I had to stop myself because many times I wanted to. We spoke about mental Marky Mark, and you cannot fault him for effort, so you cannot say anything bad about his effort. And the Hellraiser said, yeah, that speaks volumes about what dicks we were back then. So that says a lot about how horrible we were. We spoke about being under the influence of alcohol, a nice way to say you're drunk, basically. The Hellraiser used the lovely term swimming in your birthday suit as a way to say you're naked. And we spoke about skinny dipping, which, remember, is going swimming in your birthday suit, going swimming generally at night, often drunk, in the sea, wearing no clothes. But remember, all of this vocab is on the website, rockandrollenglish.com. Go to podcast episodes and the latest podcast, and I will see you all on Wednesday for the special podcast about my upcoming course. So thanks a lot, everyone, for listening. I will see you very soon, but in the meantime, just keep on rocking, baby.
Thanks so much for listening to Rock and Roll English. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit rockandrollenglish.com and facebook.com/rockandrollenglish. We'll catch you next time.